Hey everyone, so we're going to start going into the immune system now in chapter 22, and I think it's important to understand all of the different types of immune system cells. So one of the things that I do, I try to look at things, sorry, that's my dog drinking behind me. One of the things that I do is I try to look at the big picture of the chapter, and I try to pull out like kind of the big glaring concepts. And yes, A and P, you have to focus on the little things also, but I still think it's important to understand the big picture. So I'm going to make a graphic organizer of the different types of immune system cells. And we'll try to maybe do it like this, right? Ta-da! Hopefully we can see this. And I'm writing very weird because this is all kind of awkward for me. So in the middle, and again, my handwriting is going to suck because I'm writing very, there goes my paper towels, into this awkward position. But lymphocytes is kind of the main idea here. You have your T cells, and let's see, I'll just write left-handed, and you have your B cells. And you also have these cells called natural killer cells, or NK cells. There we go. So our T cells, there's different types of T cells, and you'll see this as you read through the chapter, but you have these cells called T helper cells, or TH. It's a big T and a little h. And then you have these memory T cells. You also have TC cells. Right. You have TS cells for suppressor. This TC cells are the cytotoxic T cells. So in all, these T cells are thymus dependent, and we just looked at the thymus and the role of the thymus. These cells develop in the thymus. So if your thymus is damaged or something, these T cells are definitely going to be impacted. And ultimately, these cells are regulatory, which means they help control and monitor. They basically control the sensitivity of the immune response. So in other words, if these are suppressed in any way, your immune response is not going to be, can you see it? Is not going to be as strong as if they were uninhibited or unaffected. So the suppressor T cells, these guys, ironically, as I'm talking about things being inhibited, these actually will inhibit the T and B cell activity. And then you say, well, why would we want that? T and B cell. Well, you want that response to be inhibited because you don't want it to go unchecked, right? You want the immune response to be regulated and turned off in some situations where the body says, okay, I got this. We don't need to continue this attack anymore, type of a thing. The cytotoxic T cells, these are the ones that are actually attacking virus-infected cells. Most students find graphic organizers at first confusing. Can you read that? Sorry. Most people find them confusing, but if you get in the habit of reading to make a graphic organizer, I promise it will help your comprehension hugely. The memory T cells give your body memory, or give your immune system memory. So you can say, oh, I recognize this cold virus. I'm not going to let this affect me anymore. And then this T helper cells are going to help stimulate. And again, I apologize for how unprofessional this looks, but hopefully the message is more important than my handwriting. So that's stimulate the T and B cells is what the T helper cells do. So then we get to the B cells. Actually, one more thing with the T cells. These guys are stimulated to grow by thymic hormones. So again, it's all thymus dependent. all dependent on the thymus to be there, to be working, and to create these different types of T cells. B cells are brought about by these special cellular messengers called cytokines. And cytokines are just little cell-to-cell messengers, so they're kind of locally controlled and locally operated, whereas the thymus acts as a T cell factory. The B cells can be created kind of anywhere almost. So they're called B cells because they're bone marrow derived as opposed to thymus dependent, right? Derived, I can spell derived. And basically they will create these big cells called plasma cells. And then the plasma cells create the antibodies. And we've heard of antibodies before because we talked about antibodies when we talked about blood type. Antibodies are the little proteins that will respond in an immune response. So B cells can be made anywhere. They differentiate into plasma cells and then into antibodies. Which brings us to natural killer cells over here. These natural killer cells, or NK cells, will attack virus-infected, again, an extremely awkward position for me, sorry, attack virus-infected cells, so kind of like the T cells, attack virus-infected cells, and they'll also attack cancer cells. So we say, oh, this is kind of awesome, right? We need more of these. And that's kind of exactly the truth. Natural killer cells are going around your body all the time, fighting off the little tumors that are beginning to sprout, so to speak, everywhere. At any given time, any one of us is kind of under attack from this misregulation of the cell cycle that is cancer. So these natural killer cells, if they're healthy, they float around and they squelch that little growing tumor. And when those natural killer cells aren't working, well, that's when you might get a tumor growth, or if the tumor's just growing so fast the natural killer cells can't keep up with it. So this is a nice overview of the types of cells in the immune system. How do they develop? How do they come up? Well, this is kind of a recall from chapter 19, and again, I'll draw it and then I'll show you it. So they all start from those hemocytoblasts, right? Those hemocytoblasts are those stem cells which are hanging out in the bone marrow, right? And then they differentiate into the lymphoid stem cells. And those lymphoid stem cells can migrate either to the thymus, or they stay in the bone marrow, which is where all of this magic is happening, and they can differentiate into B cells or natural killer cells. And of course in the thymus, they'll differentiate into mature T cells. So a nice little graphic organizer of how all the magic happens for these cells to come about and develop. So, I'm out of my office, so my husband is home on this snow day, and he kicked me out of my office. So I'm making the best of what I have. So that is one kind of idea behind the immune system, those different types of cells. So I'm going to stop this video here, and then we're going to talk about the different types of defenses in my next little video.